Have you ever, typed a few words into an AI, hit generate, and just watched it create something amazing? An image, some text, maybe even music?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible technology.
Right. Generative AI it's changing everything about how we create. Suddenly, anyone can be an artist or a writer. But it brings up this really big, really complex question.
Who actually owns the output?
Exactly. Who owns these AI-generated creations? So today we're taking a deep dive. We're looking into the really cutting-edge legal stuff happening in mainland China, specifically how their courts are figuring out copyright for AI-generated content.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. We'll be unpacking the legal criteria, looking at the nuances, and drawing on insights from Zink and Fu of Cornerstone and Partners.
And we've got two key court cases to look at, two landmark opinions that are really shaping this whole conversation, not just in China, but globally.
Mm.
And this matters to you, whether you're already using AI to create things, maybe you run a business thinking about using these tools, or maybe you're just curious about where creativity is heading.
It's critical stuff because it's not just dry legal points, is it?
No, not at all. It's about the very definition of human input and intellectual property now that AI is in the picture. All right, let's jump right in. When we talk about protecting creations, we mean copyright. But what does China's copyright law actually say? What does it look for to call something a work, especially if an AI made it? What are the basics?
Well, it's interesting because the whole debate really centers on whether AI content even qualifies as a work under their copyright law. Article 3 of the law lays out four key things, sort of like pillars. First, it needs to belong to literature, art, or science.
Okay, the standard fields.
Right. Second, it has to have originality. Third, you need to be able to express it in some form, make it tangible.
Got it.
And fourth, it has to be an intellectual achievement.
So 4 pillars.
Yeah.
And it sounds like for AI stuff, the first and third being in a field like art and being in a tangible form, those aren't usually the big problems.
Generally not, no.
So the real fight, the legal wrestling match, it's around originality and intellectual achievement.
Precisely. That's where it gets really focused. For originality, the courts look at two things. One, was it independently produced by the author?
Meaning the human.
Yes, the human user. And two, does it show at least a minimal level of creativity? This doesn't mean it has to be completely groundbreaking. It could be about how you selected things, arranged them, adapted them.
Even if some parts came from elsewhere, like the public domain.
Exactly. It's about that personalized touch. Then there's intellectual achievement. This involves intellectual investment, basically, your brain power and effort.
Right.
And manifested output, meaning that effort has to actually show up in the final product somehow.
Okay, so you have to see the human effort in the result.
Yeah, and that investment part is mainly seen in the prompts the user puts in, how they refine them, how they select the results they like. The tricky part, though, is that there aren't really clear rules. Like, how many tweaks do you need to make? How specific do your prompts have to be? That's not really nailed down.
So it's not just pressing generate. It really comes down to proving that human touch, that guidance, that effort was involved.
That's the core idea, yeah.
Okay, let's see how this actually works in court. This first case is fascinating. China's first copyright infringement case about AI text-to-image stuff, right?
Okay.
Handled by the Beijing Internet Court. And they actually recognized it. They said, yes, this AI image is a work, and the user is the creator.
Yes, that civil judgment from 2023 was a huge deal, a major precedent. Basically, the court saying, okay, AI can be your tool, and you can own what you make with it.
So what happened in that case?
Well, the plaintiff used Stable Diffusion, which is open source software. They put in prompts, tweaked them, got an image they liked, and published it online.
Okay.
Then the defendant took that image and used it in an article on a big platform by Jiahao for commercial reasons without asking.
So classic infringement claim. The plaintiff felt their rights were violated.
Right. Authorship, right, communication over the network.
So why did the court agree? Why grant copyright protection here? What did the plaintiff do that met those originality and intellectual achievement bars?
The court really focused on whether that image showed the user's original intellectual achievement.
Yeah.
And they decided it did. They found the plaintiff put in real intellectual effort. It wasn't just, one simple prompt.
Right.
It involved thinking about the concept, designing the visuals like the characters, how they look through the prompt words, arranging the sequence of those words, setting parameters for how it should look.
Like composition layout.
Exactly. And then making aesthetic choices, using personal judgment, making changes over and over again. iterating.
Iterating, okay.
So the court said, look, this whole process, this back and forth, shows the plaintiff's personal selection and arrangement. It meets the originality requirement, and it shows intellectual achievement.
So it wasn't just the first prompt, it was the whole process of guiding the AI, refining it. That's what mattered.
Yeah, it was key.
It sounds like they really looked closely at how the sausage was made, so to speak. What did that process look like? Did they show, like, different versions?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
They needed evidence of deliberate choices.
Yeah.
Imagine the plaintiff trying different prompts, getting results, and changing words, adjusting technical settings, maybe lighting, angle, colors, mood, then generating again, looking at it, refining again, maybe many, many times until the AI produced what matched their vision.
So it was like a dialogue with the AI.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
A negotiation,
Yeah.
where the human made the key aesthetic calls each time. That continuous personal judgment, selection, arrangement, that's what the court saw as the original intellectual achievement.
Okay, that makes sense. But now let's flip the coin. Because just recently, April 2025, right, the Suzhou Intermediate People's Court upheld a ruling that went the other way.
Indeed.
Denied copyright protection for AI content. China's first precedent of its kind doing that. So a real contrast to Beijing.
A very significant counterpoint. In this case, again, a plaintiff claimed their AI artwork was copied. The defendant used it for making and selling products. Infringement again.
Okay.
And the Suzhou court, like Beijing, also focused on whether the image showed the user's original intellectual achievement. They repeated the same ideas. Originality needs independent creation, the author's individual expression, aesthetic choices, personal judgment.
So same legal test, basically, but a totally different result.
What was the crucial difference? Why deny protection here? What was missing?
The absolute crucial point was the evidence, or rather the lack of it. The plaintiff failed to submit original records of their creative process. They just couldn't show how they modified or refined the images, how they adjusted prompts or parameters, how they made personal choices, or contributed substantially to the final look.
So they couldn't prove that intellectual investment. Exactly. Because that human element couldn't be proven with evidence. Things like screenshots of different prompts, records of parameter changes, logs showing which versions they selected. The court said, nope, these images don't have the originality needed for copyright.
Wow. That really drives home the point, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
not enough to just say you did the work.
Not anymore, it seems.
You have to prove it with detailed records. This feels like a really important warning, especially for businesses using AI. Don't just make stuff.
Document how you made it.
Right. Document your interaction, or you might find you don't actually own what the AI produced. It's a shift from show me the final thing to show me how you got there.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have these two big cases. Beijing says yes. Suzhou says no, based on the evidence. What's the big takeaway here for people using generative AI in China? How do we square these?
Well, if you look at the bigger picture, the general trend in Chinese courts is leaning towards recognizing copyright for AI content. That seems to be the direction.
Okay.
But as these cases show so clearly, the outcome really depends on the specifics of each case. The number one takeaway, the absolute key, is the user's intellectual investment during the creation process. That's decisive.
And proving it.
And proving it. Original creation records are critical evidence. If you can show you made multiple changes, you selected things carefully, you ultimately guided it to the final result, showing your intelligence and judgment,
Then can be seen as a work.
then it can be recognized as a work eligible for copyright, yes.
That makes sense. Focus on the human input. But I bet some people are thinking, okay, but how much is the human? How much is the AI? Isn't the AI doing a lot of the heavy lifting once it gets the prompt?
That's a really fair point, and
Uh-huh.
it's a central tension here.
Are there counter-arguments to this approach?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Strong ones. Some argue that, look, no matter how fancy your prompts are, you don't have total control over these AI models. The AI might fill in gaps or make connections in ways you didn't explicitly tell it to. It might introduce elements that aren't really from you.
So less human originality than it seems.
Potentially. And think about this too. Different people, maybe using slightly different prompts, could end up with identical or very, very similar images.
Right, I've seen that happen.
So that blurs the line of individual expression, which is what copyright is supposed to protect. Remember, copyright protects the expression, not just the idea.
Yeah.
And telling the difference between an AI's expression and a human's original expression, that can be really tough when the AI plays such a big role in the output. It definitely raises questions about true authorship.
It sounds like judges have a really difficult task then, trying to figure out where that human contribution really lies when these AI cases land in front of them.
It's incredibly challenging. Judges have to use a lot of discretion, evaluating the evidence freely. They have to look at the intellectual effort the creator claims they put in, understand how the work was actually formed, and then try to figure out the proportion of the creator's effort in the final result.
A balancing act.
A real balancing act. So protection seems to be the trend, but the specific proof of human input or the lack of proof, that's what makes or breaks an individual case.
Okay. So we've taken quite a deep dive here into this complex, fast-moving world of AI content and copyright in mainland China. We looked at the legal basics, Article 3, what makes it work.
Right, originality, intellectual achievement.
And then these two huge cases, Beijing recognizing copyright because the process showed human effort, and Suzhou denying it because that crucial evidence of process was missing.
Yeah.
It seems really clear that while courts might be willing to grant protection, you absolutely have to show your work. That demonstrable human intellectual investment is key.
That's exactly right. We've seen the user's role in guiding, refining, making those aesthetic calls, and crucially, documenting it all meticulously. That's what seems to define whether an AI creation gets treated as an original intellectual achievement that deserves copyright. It's really a call to action for creators.
Don't just create, record how you create.
Record the journey, yeah.
And, you know, looking at China's legal approach here gives us a really interesting window into a global challenge, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Every country, every legal system is trying to figure out how to fit AI into our old ideas about creativity and ownership.
It's a worldwide conversation.
So here's something to think about as we wrap up. As this technology, generative AI, keeps getting better, more sophisticated, maybe needing less specific prompting to create amazing things. How are we as a society and through our laws going to keep defining originality? What will intellectual achievement mean then? Where do you think that line between human input and machine contribution should eventually be drawn for copyright?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Definitely something to ponder as you keep exploring what AI can do.